be right there, everyone. Just 1 minute. Gotta share one more link. Welcome back, Lelanders, to a new special edition, Easter special. special. Now, sadly enough, today's note, I guess, a lot of people wish each other a happy Easter, but really it's kind of a somber occasion when you think about it. It's really the holiday of sacrifice, right? So today, sadly enough, not to get too morbid, but one of my friends from Entropia was on his way to go and do some peacekeeping stuff, I guess, in Ukraine, volunteering to help, which I think in essence is really an admirable cause, sacrificing your own life to try to help. So oddly enough, I was just watching or browsing Facebook yesterday, and I happened to come across a link of the Avenue of the Dead, which I'd heard about briefly, about all these different pyramids in Mexico, but I'd never really thought it would correlate to any of my research about sacrifice, well, oddly enough, and Russia and different wars and Easter. So yeah, so today's episode we're going to cover the Avenue of the Dead, how it connects to the Russia-Ukraine war, and how sacrifice in general is the theme of Easter. So where should we begin first? I guess where we'll begin is we'll open up the image that I got from Facebook. So this is what kind of kick-started this whole investigation. If anyone's wondering what this image on the screen on the globe is, we'll answer it in a second. Alright, so what do we have here? We have the 3D image, or 360 image I should call it, of Avenue of the Dead from the top of the Pyramid of the Moon from this pyramid complex I cannot pronounce. I'll have to spend a few weeks and try to work on that one. When I read the actual phonetic pronunciation, I think I can do it, but it's going to take time. I'm a bit slow learner. So oddly enough, we got this giant pyramid complex with like a giant runway type thing that they call an Avenue of the Dead. So I don't know if anyone's been watching my podcast. In case anyone hasn't been, we'll just fill them in briefly. We had a guest on talking about the September 11th ley line, and Art Olivier. Now it always takes me a few seconds or even minutes to remember Art's name, but I can't even remember anyone's name, so it's not anything specifically with Art. So anyways, if anyone wants to check out Art's page, man, he does amazing work. But what we covered is the September 11th ley line. Now it's like a straight line where all this bad stuff had happened in the past, different like sacrifice type rituals, including the September 11th attacks. Now, just to be clarifying too, a new YouTube terms of service is I have to agree with the official war narrative. So whatever the mainstream narrative is on the war in Ukraine, I just have to emphasize I agree with that. So we're by law required to do that, and now we'll just go and discuss the situation in general, and obviously I can't agree with anything that disagrees with the mainstream. So we'll discuss things I disagree with, but we'll also discuss them. So anyways, there's that neat runway. So what got me thinking, I was like, dear God, isn't it kind of weird that the ley line of sacrifice from the god of war that goes through the September 11th attacks, bunch Stonehenge, bunch of other places, hundreds other places really, it comes close to where this one is in Mexico. So I was like, isn't that weird that it doesn't line up directly? And I was thinking that's happened to me before in this ley line research, is when I do work on the ancient globe pattern and compare it to the modern one today, there's a gap between the two. So I'm always trying to figure out, why aren't they lining up exactly, like on top of each other? Like, it's the line of sacrifice. Why would there be one over here and one over here? And then what I started to realize throughout my research, especially when it comes to South America, is this is the line where the Earth crust split or split apart. And the Earth either got bigger, wider, whatever you want to call it. So that's why I started to realize that these two lines are off from each other. It's the before and after of the Earth expansion. So I was thinking, if you took the Earth, like you can even see Europe and Africa here, how there's like a lot of water in between. That's basically where it's been ripped apart, right? Like it's split. Just like the South Pole, it's split here too, Australia and Antarctica. And this is even mainstream. They don't disagree with that. They actually acknowledge that these two continents used to be merged together to be one super South Pole in the past. How long ago, no one knows. So you can see that these two lines actually outline that crack pretty good. But everyone's probably asking at this point, well, we've covered on the show before this orange line. This is St. Michael's Access, the September 11th ley line. What the hell is this blue line? So this is where my friend from Entropia is going to the war in Ukraine and Russia. Not to freak people out, but well, let's cover what this blue line is. So you've heard me mention it already briefly here, is that it's the old line of sacrifice, and this is the modern line of where it is today. So what's the deal with this old one, and how did I calculate it? So let's go down to where it originates. I don't even know let's see if we can find it. Ah, here it is, Mexico. So the other line is the September 1, and let's bring it up on here so we can see where it begins and ends. So here's where it ends there. I think Art Olivier, he was the one who pinpointed the actual location in a park where, I think, what did he say, Freemasons or someone else built an obelisk, and they hid it with trees. Something we'll see in my research in the future, the whole tree hiding thing. It's a pretty good method. So anyways, there's that, and if people are wondering, this line not only goes over the September 11th attack sites, like the Pentagon, the trade centers, the Boston airport, all that jazz, but I think someone mentioned it goes over Sandy Hook. I could be wrong about that. And another viewer mentioned it goes through the Nova Scotia area, which we just had, sadly, the anniversary of where sadly the dentist mass killing spree occurred. So you start to see we got this trend of all these sacrifices. Now, some people will say it's a conspiracy. I don't call it that because A, we're not allowed to on YouTube, and B, because I think it's more of a mystery rather than a crime. Because like conspiracy implies it's a crime, like some sort of like organized crime. So I agree that it's not nice and that it's obviously illegal, but I don't think that it's like an organized crime. It's more of like happening because it's the energy of this sacrifice line. So anyways, you keep following it. You got your Stonehenge. You got all the different spots in Europe, like the Oracle of Delphi, where Hitler was born, Jesus, Muhammad, and all that jazz. So yeah, you got all that stuff going through there. Someone was telling me there's a bunch of other huge mass shootings that occurred on this line, but yeah, I'm not surprised, sadly enough. So anyways, as we covered in the research, it's actually the crust of the Earth that cracks by this line, as we just mentioned before too. So that's why the line gets its energy from, like even the Oracle of Delphi, the energy for her getting the inspiration was supposed to be coming from an actual crack of the Earth's crust, where it was venting gas, spirits for her to inhale. So anyways, when I first looked at this orange line, I was like, man, it's so far away from Russia and Ukraine. Isn't it weird that it doesn't actually connect to it? So this is where we get into the Mexico part, the freaky part. I was thinking, since the Mexico place that we just looked at here in this slide is like this giant avenue, and they call it the Avenue of the Dead, or basically a ley line of the dead, how come it doesn't connect to the other ley line of death we just looked at? Why is there the difference, the big gap? Right, so that's basically what we're looking at here is, where does this line go if I plotted it on Google? So that's where we get the blue line. The blue line is this one here, the Avenue of Death. So isn't that a little bit kind of freaky? Like you take that Avenue of Death and you follow it, and you know what this sort of splits here? People that don't know geography on the East Coast, we got obviously the St. Lawrence River going into the Great Lakes, but that general pattern of like a basin or crack or split in the Earth's crust actually continues past the Great Lakes and then becomes the Mississippi Delta chain or whatever, the river that goes all the way down this way. So this is basically the V pattern, or the shape of where the Earth's crust used to be closer together and split apart, right? So that's why we get this giant riverbed. So let's follow this crust split, the other one, like the old Avenue of the Dead, where the continent used to combine together. And that's where we have Russia and Africa. That's where like the Mediterranean Sea and all that came, the Persian Gulf and all that jazz used to be squished together. But when this crack or split happened, when it separated, all of a sudden you had a big crevice or crevasse, and it filled in with water. And now you're left with two energy lines. Instead of just one sacrifice line, you have the two where it used to part, because it literally split on the sacrifice line, right? So sadly enough, if anyone knows their geography and they're looking at this orange line, I used to joke, I'm like, you take one of the most war-torn countries in the world that has done more colonizing and conquering, arguably, than anyone, compared even to the Mongols or to Rome, is France, right? Like the French Empire, all the different colonies, and you look at the orange line, it's basically the border of France. So people think, oh, that's not really enough evidence to prove that this line is like dividing things, France, east and west, or north, south, whatever orientation that is. So now let's spin the globe around, because even I get mixed up looking at it upside down. Let's see what this other blue line divides in half. Kind of makes me sick. Half my family's from Ukraine, so it's like kind of like choking back shit trying to even talk about this, but it goes through the center of Russia. So I was like, oh, that's not really close to the border of Russia and Ukraine. But then, remember what I was talking about? The split? Now, if you push the two things together, what's the halfway point between the orange and the blue line? Basically, squish the two halves together. What's the center point where they both meet? That is the border of Russia and Ukraine. So not to be totally fucking doomsday-ish or warning people that maybe there's something more going on to this war than meets the eye. I'm starting to wonder if it is. I have to agree with the official narrative, but we're just exploring the ideas that some other people have, not me, that that the war is also involved with oil, it's involved with money, it's involved with power, it's involved with revenge, and it's also involved with the literal crack in the earth, the split between the east and the west. Like literally, isn't that weird how that literally is the crack that separates the continent in half, right? Right where Russia and Ukraine are at war. Now, if people haven't looked into the history of the past of war in Ukraine with Russia, when I talk about revenge, apparently the Soviet Union thrived and thrived and thrived until one of its biggest members decided to split from the Union and collapse the entire thing. And guess who that was? Ukraine. So that's where the whole revenge factor comes in, right? I don't know if anyone's heard about the revenge factor. Like, arguably it can't be some sort of horrible crime, but how this worked out, peace activists decided to convince Ukraine to disarm all of its nuclear weapons. And who did they give them to help disarm? Russia. So part of the agreement was that if Ukraine disarmed all its weapons, people warned that it could cause a war because it's half the country, like, or continent, not even defended. They're like, hey, like, not having defenses usually can instigate wars. So arguably what the plan was for the UK and the United States to defend Ukraine if Russia ever acted, because they didn't have nuclear weapons anymore. So isn't it kind of weird that this entire, well, I can't say, some people think that, isn't it weird? This whole battle and this war in Ukraine is all going all over the split in the very Earth's crust of the East versus the West. So that's kind of like, it reminds me of the night versus the day. Is this war ever going to end? If I had to guess, no. Because it's literally the war of the East and the West, the very split in the frickin' Earth's crust. This energy is controlling people a lot more than we realize, if I had to guess. Like, look how much it's instigated already. We already talked about the September 11th attacks. Who knows where the Boston Marathon bombings were? Wouldn't be surprised if it's close to there. The Halifax explosion, was that really instigated by someone on purpose? I doubt it. It would be more likely some sort of weird energy that keeps causing all these events to occur on the same area. The god of war needs his sacrifices. Like, we literally look at like Mexico City and this ancient line, and that's where the god of war instructed the city to be built, because that's where he wanted human sacrifice energy to be collected. So isn't that really weird, right? So that's why it kind of freaks me out every time I hear, like, arguably I should be more sympathetic to everything and not talk about Ukraine with all these wild ideas, because part of my family is from Ukraine, but still I talk about weird stuff even when people shouldn't. Now on that other white line, if anyone's wondering, that was just one I was outlining the actual other half of the Earth's crust, because it actually splits it in four, like, you know, 4 equal cubes. So that's where the old South Pole used to be, and that's where the old North Pole used to be, before the continents all split up. You can even see like the leftover crack there. That's probably because it shifted after the Earth's crust split too, right? It was there, and then it shifted. Yeah, and so people have been asking me, how wide is this crack that's divided the Earth's crust? It's got all this weird shit going. Now we got a better idea. Alright, so we got 1 like already. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I know this is a weird Easter special. I know most people are off eating something like turkey or whatever it is for some Easter special. The other thing we'll have to check, let's take off the old cracks of the Earth, because at least lines the better. Now let's bring up the ancient map for the gravity well lines that the Freemasons had built with a lot of different obelisks. Let's check that one. So now we're looking at this blue line, and I was thinking, how close did it come for lining up at the major node points that I already had on the map? And it seems like arguably you could say this blue line and this purple line, that it sort of overlaps in some spots, that's really the same line. And it's just wobbly in some spots. So if I had to say, if I wanted to arrange this map slightly different, you could take this center node point and move it over, or you could take into account that the Earth's crust split and moved about a certain amount, right? Yeah, I didn't even notice that actually. This is the first time I compared the blue line to this purple one. I never realized how close they are. If I was to go back and redraw this purple line from scratch, I would probably be more influenced to just put the node point here, right? Like, move that over there. Wow. Because really you got to think, I'm drawing this on a globe that's a perfect sphere on the computer, when obviously the Earth itself is not a perfect sphere. So this idea that there's some sort of weird wobble, it almost should be a wobble. If it did line up perfectly, then I'd be more worried, because I'd be like, hey, why is it lining up so perfectly when obviously the Earth's crust is a different shape? Yeah, now we start to see this node point and this point here. These used to be the same. So I was thinking at one point we're looking at, that's the distance of the shift, right? If I had to guess, that's about how far. All right, so I just had someone call. I don't know if there's a package here, so I'm just going to go and check, and I'll be right back. I'm just going to run my Vaporizer Mod commercial, and we'll be back hopefully in under a minute. All right, we are back. No, sorry, that was actually just my family calling. There's like a great big steak dinner with salad and everything ready for Thanksgiving. It's like, oh wow, I have so much to be, or not Thanksgiving, Easter. I'm just thinking I'm so thankful for Easter that I called it Thanksgiving. Anyways, yeah, so I was kind of wondering how come my map didn't line up with the actual crack of the Earth's crust. Now I'm starting to get an idea of why. It's so damn close, and the reason why there's that gap is either A, the split in the Earth itself, or B, the Earth's crust is actually more of a, well, what do they call it, a pear shape, not really a perfect globe. Because you notice how this line here and goes over and jaggers over, that actually follows this exact pattern here. Even this line splitting off. So it is almost like these two images used to be overlapping, right? I don't know if anyone's very good with that idea, the Earth's crust theory, where it's like an orange peel and it's slid around the actual surface. If I had to guess, there's the evidence for the slide right there, right? All right, so what other things? I guess I'll have to wrap this up quick because I got a steak dinner waiting for me and I don't want it to get too cold. But if any of the viewers got questions, we only had one person with time to tune in. So no one else had time for questions either. But I think what I'll have to do is, I didn't really want to bring this up, but since it's Easter, and I've covered the topics of sacrifice in the past, but we'll cover it again briefly. All right, so basically what you have here is you got the Earth, and there's a history of sacrifice in the very shape or the creation of our planet. We'll leave the plate boundaries. Oh, there it is. We'll remove the Enoch crack. So just again, I wanted to show people, I don't think I actually got to show them, that Mexico blue line. Let's show where exactly this lines up. So just like that slide that we were looking at, That picture on Facebook there was taken from the pyramid, and it looks down this giant alley or valley. So that's the blue line. And it continues, obviously, through different volcanoes, I believe. And those are the ones where they threw the women in for sacrifices, sadly. I know there was one of my previous podcast guests, she was just doing a Facebook post talking about the history of witches and other women getting sacrificed and why it happens. Not to say I know all the answers, but I'm thinking there's definitely a lot to do with this stuff. Now, if you follow this line, the blue one and the orange one, a lot of volcanoes, a lot of places where women get sacrificed, sadly. All right, so that's that one line that the ancient people drew. You can draw it, keep going. It doesn't have to stop at the valley in Mexico. It keeps going, right? Straight line. It's the Mississippi Valley line. The literal crack in the Earth's crust that divides the battle between Russia and Ukraine. Now, people that don't know world history and a lot of the different horrible battles and wars, obviously Russia and Ukraine aren't the only ones. And when you look at some of the big ones, where do you got? You got Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, if anyone's heard about the Afghan wars, Pakistan. Not to single anyone out as a war-torn country, but I'm sure everyone's had history of war. Now, and then you can obviously see too, this is one of the lines that divides the Earth's crust, where it's cutting apart India, like the actual shape of the continent. Where have we seen that before? Go to the Mexico Stonehenge line. It's the one that's dividing the side of North America, right? It literally cuts that crust. Excuse me. Sorry, talking too quick without a drink. All right. Oh, and I was thinking too, that blue line, it really outlines the crust even a little bit better than the orange one, right? Because literally it is the halfway point between the two, but still, like, man, that's really good at dividing the crust line. Like, you compare the orange one to the blue one. Blue one's definitely more overlapped. But then think too, you take these two and you squish them together, then you would have the line right in the center of both. All right, so, oh yeah, we were going to talk about the history of sacrifice on the earth itself and how the earth was created. We'll go into the images. Now this cuts in, not to be any too specific to any one person's history, but yeah, let's not bring all the images. There's the history of the world elephant and how its head was cut off, beheaded, and that sacrifice was part of how our world was created. I think I got a few episodes about it in the archive. Anyone wants to check it out in more detail. And how the elephant's head used to actually connect to its body. And its body was literally this giant continent here. You can see its legs, its groin, its butt. Let's see if we have that. No, we don't have it there, so we'll just bring it up here. No, I've got two files with them, so. Sadly, I thought I had it ready and open, but no. Apparently, I closed it. I'm the worst with losing files. There it is. Yeah, so here we have the actual picture of what the elephant used to look like. So some people think it's a ridiculous idea that a turtle and an elephant are actually part of the sacrifice history of our globe. Other people think it's actually legit. Hindus, Chinese people, the indigenous people of the Americas. So just because the Europeans don't believe it, I don't think it's necessarily not true. I'm leaning more towards the idea that sacrifice is that hidden element in our technology that we haven't deciphered how the universe works yet, because we haven't even scratched the surface of how sacrifice actually works. That's where the whole Easter thing comes in, right? We keep talking about Jesus, how he came to the earth, and the whole idea is that the Magi, the guys that talk about this world elephant and the pagan stuff, they wanted sacrifice to stop. So for some reason, no more sacrifice. So I don't know, did the sacrifice stopping actually stop, or has it continued and we really just don't notice it because we've convinced ourselves that no one's being sacrificed anymore? Now, I've looked into the history of the sacrifice of traditions of almost every culture around the world now, and really gets into the Japanese, like the koji or whatever it's called. When they get into it, how like the gods gave humanity a choice. It was like either there's going to be a lot of random destruction in order to balance creation and destruction, or there could be controlled destruction. So at least when you have destruction, you know when and where. And yeah, then the gods were okay with it. They're like, all right, as long as an equal balance of creation, destruction is occurring. So not to make fun of Easter, I know it's kind of not a nice thing to say, but it's one of the debates we really need to look into. Is most people even mock the sacrifice rituals to these days. Did Jesus's Easter sacrifice really stop the need for sacrifice? I don't know. If I looked at the lines of sacrifice today and how they're still affecting the planet, arguably, I would debate whether or not it is. Hope maybe it partially did. So it's like some sacrifices going on, but not as much as it used to in the past. That could be it. No, so if anyone else has got questions or comments about the sacrifice lines, we could go over some more of the locations that the one goes. Like I've literally only investigated the locations on the orange line, partially just begun the blue line. So far we've got the Valley of the Dead and the Russia-Ukraine border separating the dividing point. God, man, it sickens me really when I look at that, right? Like you can even pan out and see it. It's like you got the two sacrifice lines and how they wave out and go back in, wave out, back in. And literally the middle point is the Russia-Ukraine border. You can see it right here, right? So it's not to freak anyone. Well, I guess people that are already fighting in this war are freaked out enough, but I'd just be careful, right? If you think this war is ever going to end, I'd be very skeptical. It's like saying that the night or day cycle is going to end one day. I think it's always going to be a battle of the East and West. You even had like East and West Germany fighting each other, right? This line separates France. Yeah, what is it? Part of Italy? Man. I don't know, like arguably there's probably going to be a lot of wars that happen in Asia, but if you like took this section of the planet here in between these two lines, well, maybe not with Africa too, but if you just calculated the ratio of wars that have been happening, I wonder which part of the planet really is the highest ratio. I think, what was it, some of my friends from Iran, they were saying that Iran has a history of like being at war a lot. Not necessarily attacking other countries, but being invaded themselves. So yeah, Iran's definitely like right in the middle of this. Tehran, yeah, like holy shit, right? That's not kind of surprised. We've been lucky that Iran really has been somewhat peaceful for quite a while. Being right in the the dead bullseye of the God of War line. They're quite fortunate to have any years of peace, really. Fuck. Nah, sorry to laugh about it, but yeah, I try to laugh to relieve stress. Not because I actually think it's funny. Alright, so what else did we cover? Oh yeah, we were going to cover some of the locations on that map. What are some of the other ones that I forgot to mention? The God of War line. So yeah, we got some giant sinkhole, probably used for sacrifices. Birth of Jesus, the Holy Land Wars, the Rila Monastery, the birthplace of Hitler. Monastery, some saint was there with like magical powers or whatever, he could heal. Boston Airport, 9/11 hijacking. So yeah, the USA model. I found out that it wasn't just the Miss USA, but a whole bunch of models keep dying in like sacrifice rituals right on that line, and they're trying to figure out why. They're like, there's like models that work all over the country. Why do they just keep dying here? So someone could say, oh, well, maybe they're dying in France too. Well, I guess I'm not sure where France is, but maybe it's close to this line as well. But anyways, I shouldn't laugh. Yeah, so the models getting killed in sacrifice rituals. Everyone's like, in the olden days, we used to kill the models, like the women in the villages that get thrown into the volcanoes. And now it's weird because the models are killing themselves, apparently. Still in the same line as they used to into the volcanoes. All right, so the Pentagon, Mecha Cube, Mount Hermon, where the fallen angels came to the earth. Mount Olympus, where the gods live, Stonehenge. Some river that splits the continent. World Trade Centers, Mike Tyson, where he encountered the God of War, and where he kept asking, why are all the best athletes that are fighters all living on this line? He didn't even notice the line. He's just like, hey, why is there so many people here that are all like the best warriors? He's like, there's other ghettos in other parts of the country, but why is it always fighters bored on this line? So if Mike Tyson's watching, there's one for you. Cherokee warriors and the volcanoes. So yeah, you got shitloads of volcanoes, women being thrown into them. So arguably, oh yeah, what is it? I forgot. The Halifax explosion, the mass murderers from the dentist in Nova Scotia, the sinking of the Titanic, the edge of the Bermuda Triangle. Yeah, so this line's just full of fun and adventure, right? Sorry. I should gotta stop laughing about the line. It's horrible. Now, I never dreamed that making these weird maps would ever find a line that had anything to do with sacrifice, so it's kind of like a worst case scenario if anyone's ever had research that they've been working on and it kind of veered off in a direction that they weren't hoping. But who knows, maybe like this whole idea of the Russia conflict in Ukraine and this line is going to help solve some of the mysteries of the entire globe. Like if people want to get into it, a lot of the pagan war symbols being used by both Russia and symbol is that spinning of the stars. Let's show it. I think I got another file here. But anyways, that spinning of the star pattern, it's being considered like the letter Z. So if anyone draws a Z or a Z on a tank or gun or whatever symbols, they're accusing each other of having this weird symbology connection going on that dates back to like the World War II. But what I was thinking too, that symbology that they're talking about, it goes way farther back than just the World War II thing. Let's like you find that symbol in so many different cultures, like the First Nations people, the Hindu ones that we talked about. What is it? The Iran ones. Here it is. Sorry, I've got like millions of folders and files, so when I try to find something on the fly, it's an adventure to say the least. And I screwed it up again. Alright, so I guess we'll just have to find that image later. It's funny, I thought I had it here. Why isn't it here? Maybe it's in this one. There we go. So there you've got the star pattern that letter Z on the tanks in Ukraine is symbolizing. Obviously, it's got some horrible things that happened in World War II, but the actual ancient pagan symbology of it, which is very common in Ukraine and Russia. Just to give an example of it. No, it's the big Easter connection we were just talking about. You gotta be fucking kidding me. The Easter one's gone too. No, it's like every picture I wanted to get ready is gone. Nope, not that one. No, it's like I've got duplicate files. In a lot of cases, when I go to look through the duplicates, I always pick the wrong one to check first. But at least then I know consistently that when I get it wrong, it's just because I checked the wrong one first. Oh, no, it was the other one. Now, there's one Ukrainian page that I follow on Facebook, and they always share a lot of Ukrainian stuff, and I've always been following it because my family is like half Ukrainian, so I know a lot of people are just like getting into Ukrainian stuff, but fuck man, it's something that I've been tracking for a long time, and the fucking page is gone. Sorry, but yeah, that really pisses me off, man. I got 2 folders that I called Easter specials, and it's not in either of them. What the hell? Has to be. No, the problem is I got a PCS. When I look at things, I can literally be looking right at something, and I won't see it, even though it's right in front of me. Makes it definitely an adventure when I'm trying to find shit. Oh, there it was. It was in that folder the whole time. So anyways, these was right in front of me. The Ukrainian symbol that's on the eggs, there's where the Z pattern keeps coming from. So if anyone's wondering why the Z pattern can be banned in some places, or is it like a military symbol? It's not just from the World War II thing. It dates back all the way to the ancient pagans. It was the right hand symbol was supposed to be the sun, godness, waking of nature, positive male energy. Uh-oh. While the left hand side means sunset, destruction, graduation, evil, negative female energy. So damn you Ukrainians, why do you always have this negative female energy mythology? That was part of the discussion too, is why did they always pick on the women when it came to throwing them in the volcanoes? I guess it dates back to this tradition where they believed female energy was negative. Not that I believe that. It's just that's what they did in the old days. Yeah, and if anyone's wondering, yeah, that's the spinning stars in the sky. And it has to do with the sacrifice ritual as well. So when we're talking about the sacrifice thing in Easter, there's the symbol for it. And isn't it weird too how it talks about one half being the destruction creative, and you literally have that half and half symbology happening here. Weird. Now if anyone else wants to know where else, remember that symbol we were just looking at? Where's another place that it repeats? Because you know, like Fibonacci sequence, symbols repeat nature over and over again. If you zoom really far out and you look at the South Pole, it's got those little hooks in the X pattern too, right? It always does that branch out, turn, branch out, turn, branch out, turn, branch out, turn. That's always how it goes all the way around the globe. Why the energy always takes that pattern? Must be something to do with the Fibonacci. Or the golden ratio, some sort of sacred geometry. It's definitely weird. Yeah, so I don't know if anyone's ever noticed this, but this is like the head of Mother Earth. So as we learn more and more about the Earth and how it works and all these different sacrifices, should get pretty interesting. I'm thinking it's a little bit scary in a way because we're reaching a new turning point for our Earth and civilization as a whole. Learning all these like secrets about the pagan religions and how it evolved and our Earth's creation, how all the world's religions branched off from it. We're starting to understand like the very holodeck nature of our universe, or we're starting to learn the power of sacrifice. It's really quite weird. Here it is. This is one I like to show because it shows the magnetic field point for the globe in 2012. Or at least it can show it if I don't fuck it up. How did I do that? Oh God. I guess we won't be showing that. What I used to be able to show is how the magnetic field point, when I turn this field on and you set it to the year 2012, it would put the center point of the magnetic field. See, we'll try again. Hopefully it'll work this time. Still not. Anyways, it'll move and put it right at the pineal gland, or that certain special spot on the forehead of the brain of the Mother Earth. So I thought that was kind of neat too. So who knows, maybe as time goes on, we'll be able to understand more, not only about the Earth and our humanity's future, and sadly, hopefully these wars won't all be for nothing and something good comes of it, because it's the only way I look at Earth and our wars. As bad as each war is, obviously this is horrible to hear during a war, but yeah, all these different wars, they usually tend to lead to some great breakthroughs in humanity, either technological breakthroughs or some sort of new like law and order type breakthroughs. The fundamental aspects of society can change for the better, so let's hope if all these disasters keep occurring that something good comes out of it. Not that it's just all death and destruction for nothing. Because that's what I kind of look at, is this God of War line. As shitty as it is for the God of War to exist, it's got to be a hard job, right? Someone's got to do it. There's got to be a negative and positive force in the Earth itself, so. Oh God. So yeah, just to say, praying for everyone going on in this situation with Ukraine and Russia, the very dividing half of the balance of the God of War line. St. Michael's access, the place of sacrifice. Yeah, so just be careful, anyone who's going into these wars. Just remember what this is all about, really. You're going into the dividing line of sacrifice, right? Not to say that everyone's going to die on this line, but dear God, man, I would definitely not be buying property anywhere on this line. Not to like literally, this is a lot of land, right? Like you're talking all of Sweden, Finland, nearly all of Europe. Man. But yeah, I would steer clear of it. All right, so I guess let's wrap up the show. Holy, we made it to 3 likes. Thanks, everyone. No, and some people's lives really are about living on the edge of adventure, and they need that adventure to thrive. And technically, when you look at some of the biggest cities in the world, this city here, where the Valley of the Dead blue line starts, or arguably just passes through because it's a circle, but no beginning or end to a circle. But yeah, if you look at that, jeez. Yeah, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, if you look at that city, it was arguably one of the greatest cities ever built. So even though it's got that horrible energy, people getting sacrificed, it's like living on the edge of a hurricane, right? Some people thrive in it. So you look at like, God, what a nightmare place. Everyone was dying. They had like literally giant racks of human skulls. But damn, wasn't it like the best city to live in? Such a weird conflict in life, right? People thriving on danger. It's really one of the human natures. They say when human nature is at its weakest is when we have our things easy. Whenever we're facing conflict is when humanity rises to new heights. So I don't know. I always tell that to people that are stuck in war zones. Yeah, it fucking sucks, man. I would try to get the hell out of there, but you got to think, like, for the people that are stuck there and have no other way to go, hopefully they can, if they survive, be stronger for it. Yeah, can you imagine that? People try to blame the leaders like Putin and the guy that's in charge of Ukraine, the actor. But yeah, the Russian actor born in the Soviet Union whose first language is Russian. But anyways, yeah, if you take those guys, they try to blame the war on them. Do you think it's really all their fault? Or does it really branch from this larger problem? The split of the two lines, right in the middle. God. Yeah, Georgia, that's Armenia. Anyone who lives in Armenia, they could probably relate to living on the fucking middle of a fucking war zone, right? Georgia. Yeah, it's almost the halfway point almost divides Iran and Iraq. If you had to say, really the divider line should be there. Iraq must have lost some of its territory. Now, I don't know too much about the wars in Iraq, so I shouldn't make fun of it, especially all the people that died. But all right, so yeah, I guess we'll summarize it. I don't want to go on for hours, and we're almost at the hour mark. They say the most popular video length for a YouTube video is, what is it, 60 minutes? Or no, 59. So we'll do the sponsor message quick. If anyone wants to help out with my Patreon, really appreciate it. I'm trying to get my own place and do research full time, so if anyone can help, really appreciate it. Suki, Dan, Jim, Ray, Travis, and Patron. Really love you guys. And ladies. Now I got offers to help me, but they can also help you at the same time. So if you want to try Society 6, finishing quick is my specialty, saying on t-shirts, bed sheets, both popular with the ladies. You can also start your own Society 6 store. It's great to start making your own revenue. Hideout TV pays you to watch videos, similar to YouTube, except they split revenue between creators and viewers. Swagbucks, it'll pay you to shop. They split the revenue from their, their ad marketing research. GameKit, they give you some money for trying games. Free Bitcoin, it's a wallet system. They'll give you money to try crypto. So it's a lot of stuff that'll help you out. And if you want to get your own websites and refer to it, it works out great. Especially the virtual mate, future lockdowns probably coming. Yeah, if you want to get one, they're for men and adults only. But if ladies need a sex machine, they know who to call. $10 off, 150 or more with the coupon code LYNBS. That's LYNBSN. And no, it's not a fake product or coupon code. It is all legit, and I get a kick from it. So just to disclose that. And yeah, my website. Right, so let's go to the fire screen. Right, so I hope I didn't freak anyone out. Try to keep everything civil in the chat below. I'll try to answer anything that comes up. And yeah, I'll try to get to some more research. I didn't get over the worst of it. Let's go to it quickly, just those little tease for next episode. We gotta hurry because we got like a minute left. Now, remember how I was talking about how there's another huge sacrifice coming in mankind's future? You can tell just by looking at this line. Remember how I was like, oh, this sign is kind of pointing to the east coast of the US? What other big disasters are coming? If anyone follows the history of earthquakes, this is also the fault line for the New Madrid fault line. So we'll do an episode on that coming up soon. Not to make fun of death and destruction, but hey, when you're going to hell in a handbasket, doesn't mean you can't enjoy the ride, right? Alright, so let's wrap it up with that. And yeah, if you can like and share and all that jazz, really appreciate it. Bye for now. See you later. And yeah, thank you, Make It HD, for the awesome comments. Later. So weird. Worst Easter special ever. Later.